Thank you, everybody, for letting me talk here. I'm with a division of IBM called Platform Computing, which is very familiar in the HPC world. Just get to the next slide. So Platform Computing has been around for 20 plus years. We are one of those schedulers originally. The product, our flagship product, is called LSF, or Load Sharing Facility. And we've done the batch scheduling, all that stuff. And then 7 years ago, we came up with another scheduler called Symphony, which is very focused on lower latency, some of the big data kind of workloads, Monte Carlo simulations that you see out there. And it's taken off real well in the financial industries. So again, we're focused on high-performance workload management, heterogeneous support and systems, and going into more of a cluster management when we got acquired by IBM 2 years ago, bringing forward some of that staff, going into obviously traditional HPC management, and then into OpenStack, and then into cloud kind of collaborations. So just a recent history, again, 2 years ago, we got acquired by IBM, got acquired into the STG division. Brian Connors was actually one of our main proponents for purchasing us. And one of the intent was obviously to work closely with the hardware vendors on the System X and also the power side within the IBM division. So now that they're going to Lenovo, again, we need to explore other things. So one of the things that we talked about is definitely this cloud opportunity. So I'm not, again, as most of the other vendors here, I think I'm not going to focus on the product. The product we're really selling is a little bit different in that we're not just talking about infrastructure, but we're talking about a managed service here. So the reason why a software guy didn't come up here and talk about cloud, HPC cloud, is because they're not the ones that are experts at HPC or grid computing or anything like that, or even distributed computing. They're focused on providing infrastructure at a really low rental per month, per hour, whether that be virtual, or one of the things that really intrigues us about software is providing other custom capabilities such as bare metal, and we'll talk about that within our presentation. The one I'm really going to talk about is just focus on what we really think about when we think about HPC cloud, or what do we do about cloud capabilities. So really, this is where we talk about within the last year that we've been offering our HPC cloud service. We've been really pre-announced it at Supercomputing last year, officially announced it in March of this year. We've gone through several months of large POCs with several of our large customers, and now we're fully getting some of our first customers in production scale at this moment. So we're a little bit behind what you saw in Amazon, so I'm not going to flood you with 1,000 customer use cases, because realistically we don't have any. But we don't have all those that they have there, but we do have customers running at this point. One of the things that we focus on is customer challenges, and really what is the biggest customer challenge? And that's really the spikes on demand that you see here. So Tim brought up the 40% is fine. That's really, if you go to a CIO and you say you're working at 40%, that's not fine. I mean, realistically, then 60% of your data center is wasted on the compute cycle. So what we want to see is really capacity is something that we should all be focused on. You should treat your data center, your HPC cluster, as same thing that a supply chain logistics guy treats his inventory. You should always be at the just-in-time inventory model, where you're delivering what is required at that specific time. And that's really how you should save your money in your data center and at that point. You don't want to see these low-level 50% usage of your cluster. You don't want to see the spikes either, although spikes are great. Spikes mean that, especially for an enterprise cluster, that means that you have a big project. You have something where things are really needed. But that's something that you can't account for on your on-premise cluster. So this is where really why you see all of these vendors and all of these solutions coming into play. Is really the first focus is taking care of the orange overcapacity. Where do you do that, and how do you include that within your capacity planning so that you don't get any of these spikes and also lower overages? So realistically, things that you could do to mitigate that is all of the schedulers, LSF included, Symphony, we all have add-on features to our scheduling products that tracks the usage of your jobs. It should be very easy for you to look at the logs, just buy a simple add-on for LSF that checks the capacity planning, the utilization of your compute systems, and so forth. And you can track that. This morning we talked about predictive analytics, all of these cool things to track Twitter data. The Twitter data is 1 million rows of data every second. An HPC or a scheduler log data is like 10 lines every minute. I mean, it's really easy to track what your scheduling capacity will be, what it's been in the past, and then extrapolate from there. So you don't get these peaks and valleys, all those things. And that's what you should use to figure out that capacity line, right? And then from that capacity line, you figure out then, well, what's my cost for, if the capacity line is way below or way above what your current capacity is right now in your data center, what is the next step? Do you want to ensure, buy more hardware, open up a new data center, or is the intent now to go to a cloud model? And that's really where we're talking to customers, and that's where they're looking at the TCOs of opening up new data centers. So we have a lot of large customers that are basically out of room, out of capacity in their data center. They don't want to be in the data center business, so they're looking to expand by not buying more data centers or opening up more infrastructure, but then moving the rest of their capacity onto the cloud and slowly migrating from the on-premise implementations and then trying to figure out that niche as to where the cloud model will be. Limited staff or CapEx budget. Again, HPC is great industry. However, there's a lot of technologies. There's a lot of technologies within that system. So now that we've expanded HPC more into also the big data, distributed cloud, distributed computing capabilities, there's the amount of technologies that one has to know has basically exponentially quadrupled in this time. So there's not just, you need to know about the network, you need to know about all the different types of scheduling engines, MPI, the different types of databases, different types of data paradigms, all those things. And really having a staff around to know all those technologies to match your workload is really limited. Priority projects. Again, we talked about those in the capacity planning aspect. We really need to focus on making sure that all those priority projects have the scale and capability, either on-premise or on cloud. Basically, you're reshuffling priorities, right? You have all of these jobs. You have the queues and stuff to pen them, but eventually all those jobs need to run. So you need to learn how to prioritize them, either within your schedule or your on-premise, or if not, then make that bursting capability over to a cloud model. So high-performance applications in the cloud can be harder than it seems, and as you saw. So what are the challenges that people are looking at? So we've had HPC in the cloud for, what, 3-4 years now? So why isn't everybody doing it at this point? Obviously, because everybody loves buying $3 million of hardware, right? And making sure that that's available to you on time, all the time, within your data center. But the reality is that there's some implications, and most of those implications are in performance. So poor or unpredictable performance. Some of the enterprise clusters have guaranteed service levels to their customers as to how fast they need to turn around projects and things like that. So that's probably the number one thing that a lot of our customers are looking at when they move to the cloud. So how do we address those from a platform as well as a software combination? So what were things that we're focused on is, yes, software can provide a lot of the other things like the cloud vendors can. They can provide virtual machines from small to large spectrum. But one of the things they're known for is really providing custom bare metal and a dedicated infrastructure. And what does that mean? That means it's basically a bare metal machine You install the OS that you want. You have a choice of the networking infrastructure, and this is a dedicated private VLAN infrastructure. So your hardware and your bare metal machines, and even your virtual machines that you might want to spin up, can all be in the same private VLAN. That same private VLAN can then be connected back to your on-premise network, either through a VPN or MPLS connection, so that it appears just like it's on your network. That also means that there's security implications on that private VLAN, where it's basically you can establish your own private firewall within it, so that it's not shared within all those the other tenants within the cloud infrastructure. We also provide different types of networking capabilities. 1 gig, 10 gig, Ethernet, looking at 40 gig probably by the middle of next year. But we also have InfiniBand capability. So we're looking to ramp up the InfiniBand data centers that are, or the data centers that have InfiniBand capability as we move into 2015. But Mellanox is one of the partners we have in terms of providing InfiniBand on a cloud like HPC layer. Advanced data management. One of the questions was, how do we get the data to the cloud? Obviously, there's several ways to do that, ranging from the old reliable, ship us a USB disk, and if it's really, really large upload, to providing you with fast protocol data transfers like Aspera. So IBM purchased a company called Aspera, really focused on utilizing fast packet transfers through existing connections. So those day-to-day transfers of data that has to go with job, make it a little bit faster, or a lot faster in some cases, depending on network capability. Make it faster to include those data into those jobs. And we also have the new capabilities within the platform LSF scheduler for data affinity kind of scheduling as well that we can talk about later, but that's not the focus of this presentation. So the other thing about having a cloud, and it's universal for all of the cloud vendors, is really you get the benefit of continual technology refresh. So if you're as most cloud vendors, as they get bigger and bigger, so if you look at SoftLayer, IBM has basically promised to increase the footprint of SoftLayer by dedicating $2 billion commitment to increasing the SoftLayer data center number of data centers that they have. All of that will be new equipment, and as time goes on, there's a technology refresh, and as the data centers grows bigger, there will be new technology which you can use or accessing to use for your applications. So as you see here, most people have a refresh cycle of 2 to 3 to 4 years. Some of the universities are even longer, unfortunately. So utilizing a cloud vendor, you have the access to maybe not the greatest and latest technology, but really within 6 months to a year or two, you'll have the latest chip technology, the fastest chip, the fastest interconnects, and all those things. So privacy and security concerns, sensitive data, again, since you're on your own private VLAN, all of that can be controlled by you. You can have your own dedicated mass storage device as well. So all those things can be chosen. Running out of time here. So we already talked about the encryption, secure technology. We decommission the disks after they're done, so that when you do lessen your profile of compute nodes, your data will not be accessible to anybody else that you might have in there. You'll have these slides so you can see all those certifications. So cost transparency, again, being able to dial up and down the resources as you need, bursts of the cloud capabilities. We do have reporting, usage-based accountings. That's some of the managed services that we provide on top of the SoftLayer capability, as well as providing you with metrics on how your jobs are utilized. So we talked about using LSF capability to do the analytics and providing you with the measurements of use and scale. And the local points of presence. This is just one thing. I mean, Amazon showed their chart, so I'll show the SoftLayer chart. It's comparable. I think since Amazon doesn't publish their numbers, it's kind of hard to tell who's got more servers. But definitely, again, the massive investment that IBM has put on the soft layer data center footprint. So they went from 13 data centers this year to 40 data centers by 2015. And then I'll put some numbers up there for that. But that's about it. Any questions?
Yes. And it could be anybody on the panel. One of the things I was surprised I'm not hearing about is something that we at IDC hear about fairly often, which is anti-cloud prejudice on the part of data center managers who kind of like to control HPC and the idea of users bypassing the queue and spinning up their own clusters. And as some of the managers use horror language like naive users getting into trouble with root access. So how much of a factor is that you guys have to overcome culturally in growing your businesses?
So yeah, that's a good thing to check, because one of the customers that initial customers we're onboarding right now, it's not the users that are asking for the cloud service. It's the IT organization that's driving the promotion of the use. It's basically they're looking at their capital investments and they're looking at their trained staff, and they don't want to. And HPC is a big part of their organization, and they want to be able to control that even further by pushing it through the cloud model and controlling the access points to the cloud. So that's one way of doing it. Obviously, there's different ways of accessing. If a user wants to call us directly, obviously we'll work with them and go by what if they're not beholden to their corporate IT governance, then that's obviously open as well.
Yeah, you'd think they'd be beholden to their corporate finance.
Well, that's between each department, right?
Yes, probably. Okay, thank you very much. Let's thank Charlie.